Okay, guys, so we are actually going to continue our coverage over Gary Dugan's X-Men run, where we actually pick up with X-Men number 5. Now, with X-Men number 5, it's all about Polaris. Now, with that being said, this book right here may split the Polaris fans in half, where you might have some fans okay with this book and other fans technically not okay with this book. Either way, when it comes to X-Men number 5 by Gary Dugan, we actually pick up with the X-Men right now in Mexico. Now, we're not told where in Mexico, not a specific location, just that they're in Mexico right now and they're trying to stop the Reavers. Now, the Reavers are technically not a new concept in X-Men comics, it's just a new version of the Reavers. And what I mean by that is these Reavers right here actually work for Madripoor's government, for Rendy. Now, with that being said though, they are technically humans who were injured thanks to being near a battle that happened thanks to a couple of mutants. And so because they were injured, they were all given cybernetic body parts. And so they can use those body parts as a way to get revenge against the mutant race, because they blame the mutant race for their injuries. Now, they were hired to come to Mexico to actually disrupt an election that was happening right now. The people of Mexico were going to vote for a specific person for a specific office, and the Reavers were hired to disrupt that. Now, the X-Men did arrive to stop the Reavers, but the Reavers came prepared, and they were able to knock out every single one of the X-Men. Now, Polaris wakes up, and when she wakes up, she's very upset with what the Reavers had done to her, but also to her team. And so she does use her powers to control metal to begin the process of controlling Wolverine, because Wolverine Bones is covered in metal. And so right now, it's Polaris saying, "You're about to see my rage, and I'm going to use my rage against you here and now." And so that is the moment where we actually jump back in time. Now, when we do, we actually pick up at the very first Hellfire Gala event. And the reason why I say the very first Hellfire Gala event is because we have more Hellfire Gala events after this book came out. Either way, the first one was technically the way the mutant race were able to vote on who should be on the X-Men team. Now, at first, we see Doctor Strange because he's technically impressed on how the mutant race is actually voting, using their minds, because their entire race was connected psychically thanks to the psychic mutants. Now, of course, we did see the mutants actually vote on different characters on who should be on the X-Men team, but when it came to Polaris, she actually did not want to be on the team. And matter of fact, she voted against herself, saying, "Hey, do not pick me. I do not want to be on the team." But then you had Jean Grey use her powers to change Polaris' mind, to say, "No, you want to be on the team." And so you have Polaris say, "You're right. I do want to be on the team." And so then that led to Polaris to actually be on the X-Men team, thanks to Jean Grey changing her vote. And so that is the moment where we actually begin to see Polaris, but in the early days of the week, meaning that the days that took place right before the present day, where you have the X-Men fighting against the Reavers in Mexico. And so starting with Monday, we actually see Polaris right now, and she's technically helping out with this nuclear plant problem, because right now they're very close into having a meltdown at this nuclear plant. And so they're trying to prevent one. Now, unfortunately, when she gets there, it's technically too late. Like, she does try to use her power still to prevent one, but of course, one is about to happen. But then she does use her powers as a way to control the meltdown. And so what she does next is that she takes a stag onto the X-Men spaceship and flies it towards the sun, where she's able to actually drop the stag into the sun so that it can go nuclear on Earth, and of course do a lot of damage to the Earth. And so technically she was able to prevent a meltdown from actually happening on Earth. And so getting into Tuesday, we do pick up with Polaris and the X-Men, but also this section is going to technically be about a new bad guy that we have been seeing in behind the scenes in every single book. And of course, we have no idea who is this new bad guy, but apparently he wants to do something to the X-Men. Now, with that being said though, on Tuesday, Polaris and the X-Men were fighting against animals that were turned into monsters and of course attacking the city. And so you do have Polaris and the X-Men work together to actually fight against these monsters. Now that is the moment you have Polaris see this seal that was technically put inside a dog's body. So take a dog and a seal and combine them together. Either way, when she does see one, she does get close to it, and of course she sees a camera on there. Now that camera is of course recording her and the X-Men, and they're also being watched. They're being watched by Dr. Stasis, this new bad guy who we have no idea who he is and what is his master plan. Either way, once he realized that Polaris saw the seal dog, he then kills off the seal dog right in front of her. Now, when Wolverine sees it dies, Wolverine believes that Polaris had killed the dog. In reality, she did not. The dog just died because of Dr. Stasis hit some button that went ahead and killed off the dog. And so getting back to the present day, we actually do pick up right now with Polaris being very upset at the Reavers because the Reavers were able to actually defeat the entire X-Men team. And so right now, she wants to actually deal with them. She wants to beat them down. And so we saw her earlier. She began to use her powers as a way to control Wolverine because again, her bones are covered in metal. And when it comes to Polaris powers, she can control metal. And so you have Polaris use herself, but also Wolverine to fight against the Reavers. Now, at first, the Reavers are technically getting their butt whooped and they're getting cut up as well, losing limbs left and right thanks to Wolverine's claws. Now, with that being said, you didn't have the Reavers say, you know what, we'll just blind you, which they did. They did blind Polaris, but that is the moment you have Polaris tell us that when it comes to her powers, she's still able to actually sense metal around her. And because of that sense right there, it's kind of like a second set of eyes. And so technically she can still see. And so with that being said, she's able to use Wolverine, who then wakes up, but then they work together to actually finish off the Reavers. Now, after they were able to actually defeat the Reavers, you have Polaris technically celebrate. And the reason why, because she was technically the one who had defeated the Reavers. The rest of the X-Men were knocked out and defeated. Now, of course, while she is celebrating, we also get a reminder that when it comes to Wolverine and also Synch, there is something going on. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to explain what's going on between these two characters for the sake of the video because it could take a while to actually sit down and explain. But just know that there is something going on between these two characters and they really do need to talk. Now, after that, you didn't have Polaris want to talk to Jean Grey, but in private. And of course, this is about what Jean Grey did back in the Hellfire Gala event by changing Polaris' mind into joining the X-Men. And so that is the moment where you do have Polaris actually go to Jean Grey. And when she does, she asks Jean Grey, hey, why did you use your powers on me to change my mind? I did not want to join the X-Men. But then you have Jean Grey say, actually, that's false because I read your mind. And before you said you did not want to join the X-Men, you actually said you wanted to join the X-Men. You actually talked yourself out of it because you doubt yourself. In reality, you should not doubt yourself because you are technically a great fit for the team. And look at what you did today. You are a great X-Men. And so that is why Jean Grey used her powers on Polaris in the Hellfire Gala event, because Polaris had technically talked herself out of joining the team. In reality, she always wanted to be on the team. Now that is the moment where we actually see the X-Men go back to New York. Now when they do go back to New York, this leads into the X-Men right now doing some kind of event where right now they're serving the homeless. Now, while they're doing that though, of course, that is the moment you have Ben Urich appear. Now, we have to remember, Ben Urich is technically a reporter, and right now he's been working on one particular story, and that story is how the X-Men have found a way to actually cheat death. And honestly, he's right, because the X-Men did find a way. Let's not forget about the Five. The Five are able to create you a brand new body after you die, and then your memories are downloaded into your new body. And so right now, it's Ben coming to Scott Summers, Cyclops, and saying, hey man, listen, I figured out that you guys are right now cheating death. And I have a lot of evidence to actually prove that. Now, he even says, Cyclops, I heard recently that you died on a mission in space. And he's right, Cyclops did, back in House of X and Power of X. But of course, Cyclops was brought back to life, the same for a lot of mutants. And so right now, it's Ben saying, listen, I have this story. It's not done yet, but it is going to be released very soon. And when it is released to the world, the entire world is going to find out that you, the mutant race, have found a way to cheat death. Now, the only reason why Ben had actually got this idea to write this story is because of Dr. Stasis, this new bad guy behind the scenes that is trying to cause a lot of problems for the X-Men. But right now, you have Ben tell Scott, don't worry, my story is not done. But if you want to add any comments, you better do it soon, because I'm going to release the story very soon. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.